Pakistani governor mandates Quran studies for all university curriculums. Okay, so in Lahore, Pakistan. According to Punjab Governor Secretariat, a notification issued on June 15th, university students would not be awarded a degree if they do not study the Holy Quran with an Urdu translation. Governor Chaudhry Sarwar said that without the proper implementation of the guidelines of the Holy Quran, one could not achieve success in the world. He considered the Quran a complete code of life whose better understanding would help people win God's favor. He mentioned amendments would be made to the Constitution to make the Quran's teachings compulsory for all students. The Quran course may be equivalent to 1 credit hour per year as the relevant university feels appropriate.
Okay. Qurans with Urdu translations might end up being the best way to create atheists in Pakistan. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure if I oppose this. I don't know. Like maybe this is exactly what we need. Like the entire Quran, because I don't know, in Iran when we were studying the Quran in school as mandatory, we didn't have the entire Quran. We didn't study the Persian translation of the entire Quran. We had like separate books from the Quran that had specific places of the Quran that were analyzed and translated and reviewed, but not like we didn't read the entire Quran cover to cover. Like I suspect if we did, there would be a lot more atheists coming out of those classes. Rivka.
No, I didn't have my finger up, but I was laughing because yes, that's exactly the case, is that you often don't show young people in these classes the whole thing. You show them what you want them to see in order to indoctrinate however you're what you think is the right lesson that you're talking about and all that. You don't usually, but we did have to read all those stories and they were not good.
I don't know if I agree with you guys because it's still a tailored Quran studies course. Like they could still do all those things where it's just the good parts. Like, I went through all my Catholic education looking at Catholic understandings very specifically, right? Like, I wanted to talk about this because this is part of a broader movement that's been happening in Pakistan that's increasing the Islamization of the entirety of Pakistan's education. So you can't even get out of this if you're not a Muslim. You have to study this. You have to get this to gain your education. It's actually
that's
insane.
The point that it's a problem about.
And it's putting an extra burden on students because they're going to do Quran studies where you have to learn Arabic and then you have to understand the Urdu translation. And you're going to be quizzed on very specific aspects of scripture. And so you have to know these things really in depth. And to make it mandatory for university curriculums, regardless of what a person is learning, is such a waste of resources and time. And I think about like situations where then countries wonder why they have a brain dump, right? Like, or a country like Iran, like why do they have a brain dump? Like, because everyone hates this form of indoctrination. Like, this is going to disincentivize people from seeking education in Pakistan. Like, they're going to look elsewhere for their university educations because, and people just want to leave.
I agree that is also the crux of the issue. I think we were just kind of, ha-haing it a little bit about that. But that, to me, shows what that is the Islamization. That is the government and the religion coming together, demanding that everyone learn a specific text of a specific religion. Yes, it's an Islamic country, but that doesn't mean every single person is Muslim, as we have seen by some of the cases with Christians. And I think that, some of the brain drain could be a problem. But maybe it's also to sort of force it in a way, people to take a stand. If you don't like it, then you must be this kind of person. So they can kind of identify who's who.
Okay, if we go based on what happened in other countries, in Iran, even though religion was forced from elementary school and all the way to university, to kids, and look at the results, right? The results has been that around 30% of the country, based on the latest stats, consider themselves Muslim, right? Within one generation, within 40 years, Iran went from an Islamic majority country to now being a Muslim minority country. A Muslim minority, like most people don't notice, that the latest stats shows that only 30% of people in Iran consider themselves Muslim, right? And this has been done not because of atheist activism. Like, I wish atheist activists could claim credit. It's no, the Islamic Republic of Iran has created more atheists than any atheist activist could ever dream of, right? So we have seen the results of this kind of activity. So I was like, at the beginning, we were ha-haing it, like Rivka said, but now that I think about it, maybe go ahead, Pakistan, maybe like go the way of Iran, like this seems to be like an atheist making strategy. If you do this, especially if you're going to translate the entire Quran. Again, another case that I want to bring up, I think it was in Egypt that studies were showing that providing that, it wasn't in Egypt, it was somewhere else. I forgot where it was, because it had to be like the fact that they were providing translations. Oh, it was, I think, Malaysia. I'm not sure, but I forgot where it was this. But there was a stats that even the Islamic scholars were admitting that the fact that the translations are being made available to students is creating atheists, right? They were worried. And this is also why in the Arab-speaking Islamic world, atheism is growing astronomically fast, because they speak it and they could they have access to the Quran much more than the vast majority of Muslims. The vast majority of Muslims don't speak Arabic. So the fact that they're teaching these translations is really helping our case, right? So I don't know. I mean, it might be like just a joke, or like, oh, hey, this is going to produce atheists. But is it really a joke? Like, maybe it's actually going to really help our case. Sus.
Well, that's actually a funny point you made, that it's mandatory to learn Arabic, because then you can't use the rebuttal of, you don't even understand the Quran because you don't know Arabic. It's like, no, mofo, you taught it to me and I know even better how dumb this is. Rivka?
So I think that Armin may be onto something in a way that it may take longer than we would like, but so think about this in terms of the arc of history. When you started having, if you want to look at it this way, Bibles printed in the language that the people spoke, and the Protestant Reformation and the non-intercessor, and you didn't need to make the service in Latin. And then, from there, and the access to the Gutenberg Bible, all these things start spiraling into making the Enlightenment happen. It starts changing all these different things that seemed constant and ruling the world in the West. So I wonder, and people start, because one of the Enlightenment principles is freedom from arbitrary religious authority. So I wonder if, on some level, how some reformations happen within all kinds of societies is when people start really having access to what it is that's being pushed on them, and understanding it and realizing how ridiculous it is, or how much they don't like it or reject it, then leads to other rejections of other things, which then lead to a more open, enlightened mindset, society, etc.
okay, secular Proton is saying in Pakistan people are going to learn Arabic. That's not going to happening. That's not going to happen. They'd have to translate the Urdu. Didn't we just say that they're teaching the translations? That's what we said, guys. Pay attention.
And they also have to learn Arabic. They're bringing it into like K through whatever the Pakistani version of K through 12 education is.
Yeah, I mean, okay. So if I go based on what happened in Iran. Teaching Arabic doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to know the Arabic, read the Quran in Arabic and know what it says, right? Like we studied Arabic in Iran for 12 years and we still just can't like read the Quran and just know exactly what it says just by reading it, right? We just learn how to pass our test, which is completely different. It really depends on how it's executed, right? But I think the fact that, and again, if they're like translating the Quran into Urdu, are they going to pick and choose, or are they going to translate the entire thing and make him read it cover to cover? That's also going to make a big difference. But at the end of the day, even if they do pick and choose, I think if you look at what happened here's actually the most important part. In Iran, even though they picked and choose, and we were not exposed to the worst parts of the Quran until we left Islam. Like I left Islam and then I realized how bad the Quran is, right? It wasn't like, oh, look how horrible the Quran is, and then I left Islam, because most of what I learned about how the horrible parts of the Quran came like I just got like, there's no way this is in the Quran. Like we've been studying this for 12 years. Is that possible? Like, yeah, it is, right? So the way that this encourages people to leave Islam is not because, for some people it is, but for a lot of people it's not because like, oh my God, this is horrible, I'm going to leave this religion. For most people it's like, this is annoying, why am I learning this? I don't like this, right? Like the fact that, I mean, kids don't like homework, right? So turn Islam to homework and make them have to do it for 12 years. See what the results are going to be. They're just going to have an emotional resentment towards it, right? So,
like how every time before you started school, you had to wait outside, like in the cold or the weather, until there was a prayer called or something.
No, like so for example, exactly. Like in Iran, when we in elementary school and guidance school and in high school, every morning, right, early in the morning before you go to class, you have to stand outside in lines, right? Line for grade 1, line for grade 2, line for grade 3, all the way to 5. Anybody stands in their own class, and you just have to wait outside for 15 minutes or something for a speech, and then first a Quran reading, and then maybe an announcement. But everybody's just waiting, and it's either like really cold or it's really hot, right? And you just can't wait for this Quran reading to finish, right? Because you want to go inside, but in safety of like air conditioning on like the heat, right? And there's this kid that is reading the Quran, and you have no idea, like it's in Arabic, and you have no idea, like nobody knows what he's saying, right? It's like it's not your language, and you just have to listen to it, and it doesn't sound beautiful, and people have to you have to be convinced that this is beautiful. You don't like it, you just want them to finish. Like every time it gets longer than usual, you're like, oh my God. Like, oh my, like if it's usually
just
like
end me already.
Right, yes. Usually if it's 5 minutes, if it goes like if they pick like a bigger ayah or something and it goes on like 6 or 7 minutes, they're like, kill me please, kill me. Like this is it seems like the system has been designed in a way to make kids hate the Quran. Like are you guys trying to make every kid hate the Quran? Because that's, and look, the results has been, and some people in the lifestyle are saying they doubt the statistics because of their feeling. Like, really, guys? Like, oh yeah, I heard these statistics, but I doubt it. And based on what?
It had a sample size of over 40,000.
50,000. You got to 40,000 after cleaning for anything that they consider suspicious, right? And guys, you don't need to have to trust the statistics completely, but if you're trusting your own gut feeling over statistics, you do not know how to do critical thinking, okay? You seriously have a problem. Like, oh yeah,
one of the largest studies of Iranian religious beliefs since the beginning of the revolution.
Yeah, since ever. No, since ever.
Really?
Yeah, people are like, yeah, I'm going to go with what my gut tells me over data. Yeah, like there's a name for that, okay? There's a name for that. It's called anti-intellectualism. You're being, you're doing that. You're doing the thing. You're doing the thing. You're doing the anti-intellectualism. All right. Oh, thank you. Valid point, Armin. Again, I see that the Rabid Atheist is saying valid point, Armin. I do want to use this as an opportunity to mention that all my points are valid. Of course, if I, but thank you.
Hey guys, if you're a fan of Blasphemy and Sexy Callie, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter, link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our Blasphemous Art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe, link in the description below.